Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we're going to go through a month-long reading vlog of some of the 2024 releases that I missed. I thought it might be fun to do a reading vlog in the month of January of some of the books from 2024 that I didn't get to. This will not encompass all of them by any means, and I have a much larger stack here than I will get to this month, but I thought it would be fun to try at least a few. My plan is to select my books today, and that way I know which ones I need to keep for the month of January, which ones I need to make part of my January TBR, and then if I need more, I'll deal with that then. So I have some random selection processes that I am going to use in this first little clip for this vlog. The first one will be a spinner. So I'm going to have the spinner select one book for me at first. And so that book will be a certainty for this vlog. That will be my first read. The second book that I choose will actually be of my choosing. I'm going to read all of the physical books, not all. I will take all of the physical books that I have in front of me and read the first line to you, the first sentence. And whichever one I think grabs me the most will be the second book that I read for this vlog. And then you all will be part of this selection as well, which you will already know by the time you've gotten to this. Or if you missed it, I'm sorry, but it's already been selected. I will post in my community tab probably the first week of January, a couple of books for you guys to choose from, and then that will be my third book for this vlog. After that is selected, I will do the spinner wheel again just to have a book on the back burner, a fourth book. My assumption is that this vlog will only be 3 books long just because of how busy my plans for January are, but I will have one in my back pocket for just in case type of a scenario. So let's get started with the spinner wheel. So I have the spinner wheel already created on my phone, and let's see, actually, let me move over. I should be able to put the graphic of the spinner over here, and let me screen record real quick and spin. Fingers crossed I get something I want. All of these are things that I want to read, but some that I want to read more than others. Oh, the Maid and the Crocodile. Okay, I actually do. I have that one physically. So this is the Maid and the Crocodile. I know it's gonna kind of blind you guys because it has a little bit of a shiny cover because it's a library copy, so I won't hold it up the entire time. But this is by Jordan Ifueko, and I am so excited to read another book by Jordan Ifueko. She is the author of Raybearer, and the second book, it was a duology, and it's a YA fantasy, and I don't typically like YA. So I am excited to be back with the author that I have enjoyed in the past. Okay, so let's read the inside flap together. I read this quite a while ago, but I don't remember exactly what it's about. So this says, the smallest spark can bind 2 hearts or start a revolution. In the magic-soaked capital of Aluwan, small Said needs a job, preferably as a maid, for employers who don't mind her unique appearance and unlucky foot. But before she can be hired, she accidentally binds herself to a powerful being known only as the Crocodile, a god rumored to devour pretty girls. Small Said entrances the Crocodile with her secret. She is not only an orphan and an aspiring maid, but also a curse eater, gifted with the ability to alter people's fates by cleaning their houses. I don't know, it sounds interesting, and like I said, I've enjoyed the author in the past. So this will be our first book for this vlog. The second book will be knocking books over. It will be one of the following titles. So I'm just gonna hold up the books that I have, and I'm gonna read the first sentence to you guys, and then I'm gonna put them in 2 piles. So as I read them, I'm gonna put them in the keeper pile and then the maybe later pile. And from the keeper pile, I will select the book that I want to continue with. So the first book is A Full Speed to a Crash Landing. This book is so cute and tiny. I, ever since reading Hunt the Stars, have really wanted another kind of space sci-fi romance book, and I think this will give that to me, but we'll see. So let's read the first line, or maybe we should do the first paragraph because it's not a lot. Okay, let's read the first paragraph. So, I'm not in an ideal situation right now. I've got 10% of air left in this portable tank. Ship's been decompressed, which is not great. Have to rely on the tank. Okay. Maybe got an hour of air left. Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna put that in the maybe pile. And then the next book I have is The City of Glass. This is by Nevo, and that's why it's in this list. I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but I have enjoyed Nevo's writing before. So let's see what the first paragraph of this is. From the topmost tower of the observatory to the floating docks on the beach, the city of Ezreal lit up with paper lanterns, with candles, with girls throwing flaming knives and boys in firefly crowns, with passion, with desire, with hatred, and with delight. Okay, that's gonna go in the maybe pile too. Am I gonna be able to choose? The next book is The Eyes Are the Best Part, and I'm gonna pre-scan the paragraph in this just to make sure that it's not gonna trigger anybody, because I know that this book does have some triggers in it, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm only gonna read part of the first paragraph, because then I think some people might have an issue with the later half. Not that it's really bad, but I just don't want to gross anybody out. So this says, Uma tells me the eyes are the best part. I watch as she leans over the dinner table, her dark hair tucked neatly behind her ears, her manicured fingers working quickly and deftly as the fish on the plate, or at the fish on the plate in front of her. She's done this so many times, she could do it with her eyes closed. And then it describes like how she is like boning the fish. So I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna put this in the maybe later pile. I really want to read it, but I just don't know that I'm in the mood for horror right now. The next book is The Cemetery of Untold Stories. So let's see what this one has to say. This says, Alma once had a friend, a writer, who for years before she died, relatively young, was always talking about this one story she had to write down. Over the course of their 30-plus year friendship, Alma's friend has become quite famous, winning major prizes, garnering important interviews, awards left and right. A TV movie based on one of her novels was in the works, and with well-known names even Alma, not a big Hollywood person, had heard of. And yet her friend dismissed these achievements as incidentals. The real deal was this one story that would not be hurried. Okay, that's gonna go in the maybe pile. Next we have I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. This one is just, it just sounds really cute. Okay, the first paragraph. The warning, and this is a prologue. The warning came in the form of a great wind, sudden and cold, sweeping out of the western mountains on a perfectly bland and cloudless summer day. Along with it came the charcoal burners, the trappers, the rest of the forest folk, woodcutters, swineherds, herb wives, even the occasional hermit, and more occasional outlaw, rushing to seek shelter in the nearby village. The villagers eagerly took them all in, glad of more hands to share in the hastily battening down of the doors, windows, shelves, and cellars, and hanging stones from the eaves and edges of the thatched roofs, in hopes of holding their houses together against the rising wind. As they worked, they prayed that it might indeed only be wind. It's a dragon! Man, I'm gonna put this in the maybe pile as well. I'm gonna have to start being more picky. I'll Be Waiting is my next book. And I do think that this is maybe a horror novel as well. So let's see. Snow drives into the wind, turning an evening ride home into a theme park spaceship ride, launching us into orbit, light streaking past, making me feel as though we're hurtling forward instead of inching along the highway. I'm thinking Iceland, Anton says from the driver's side. I shake my head. It's a freak fall storm. By tomorrow it'll be gone. Wait until February, then you can start complaining about the snow. That didn't really give me anything, so I'm gonna put that in the maybe later pile. Then I have one more, and this one is actually one of my physical TBR books, Goddess of the River, which I want to read because it's from Vaishnavi Patel, who wrote Kai Kai, which I really enjoyed. Let's see what the first paragraph has in store for us. Oh my goodness, there's like a family tree in here. Eee, that's fun. Okay, this says, do you know how a river forms? Perhaps you've heard that it begins with a small stream in a cold and distant mountain, a trickle of melting snow, and a splash of rain that slowly carves its way down steep slopes, connecting with other rivulets, growing, leaping, bounding as it cascades down the mountainside and into the land below, sculpting the tree and rock with its powerful currents until it unites at last with the sea. But that's not how I came to the earth. No. Ooh, that sounds good too. Oh no. Oh, okay, I'm gonna put that in the maybe pile as well, which means I have 5 maybes. So what do I do to decide? I'm gonna say I'm gonna put the full speed to a crash landing, that's going to be in the maybe later pile, just because it didn't have as intense of a beginning. And so that means I still have 4 options. Of the 4 options that I have left, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at Goodreads and we're going to see which one has the highest overall average rating, and that's the one I'm going to go with. So let's take a peek at Goodreads. So we're going to look at The City of Glass first. That's just the first one that I have. So The City of Glass has a 3.83. So we'll see if the next one beats that one or if it doesn't. So we're gonna look up The Cemetery of Untold Stories. The Cemetery of Untold Stories has a 3.66. So it's now out of the running. Now we have The Goddess of the River. Okay, The Goddess of the River has a 3.82, so it still doesn't beat City of Glass, so that one's out of the running. So the only one that could potentially beat the City of Glass, or the City in Glass, is I'm Afraid You Have Dragons. Let's see. And it does not. I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons has a 3.70 on Goodreads. So that means we have our second book of the vlog, The City of Glass, or The City in Glass. So I will be reading The Maid and the Crocodile and The City of Glass, and then I will be reading one other book. I will give you guys 4 options and you will vote, and that will be my third book. So the next time I see you guys for this vlog, I will have read some of these books. So I'll let you know what I think at that point in time. Hello again, friends. It's been a couple of days since I last talked to you, but I'm still in December. It is December 31st, and I went ahead and got started with The Maid and the Crocodile. I'm a little leery. I know I've talked to you guys about January being a little bit of a blur for me, and so I'm trying to get ahead of it a little bit. And now that I've started this, I don't know that I can put it down, and so I'm gonna go ahead and update you guys. But before I get to this, let me do a couple of updates on things that I talked to you guys about in that intro clip. I told you that I was going to have you guys vote on a book, and technically the voting is open until tomorrow. But right now there's 184 people, I think, that have voted, and 52% of people have voted for I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. Yeah, I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, which I'm really excited about. So I'm pretty sure this one will win. The other one that's close to it, it might be the one that I'm going to talk to you about in just a minute. But the one that's closest to it is like 22%. So unless that post just gets an enormous amount of votes within the next couple of days, this will be featured in this vlog as well. The other book that I was going to mention, and I think this is the one that got 22 or 23% of the vote. This is the book that I don't know why I didn't do this, but in the original intro clip, I told you guys that I was going to spin for the second, like if there was, or if there happened to be enough time in this vlog for me to read 4 books, what it would be. And I was just going to spin for that after like you guys had selected your book. So I went ahead and spun, and this is the book that I landed on. So this one might be featured in this. I do have a lot of time with this book. I just don't know that, like, from my library, and it's only a 4-hour audio because I also have it available on audio. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it by the time this vlog needs to be posted. So we'll see. Stay tuned. On to the actual book that I want to talk to you guys about, and the update that I'm giving you. This is Maid and the Crocodile, which I'm at 46%, and I am hoping that I'll be able to get it finished tonight. If not, I'll have like just a little bit to finish in the new year, and this will be my first book of the year. So I'm actually happy either way, if it's the last book of the year or the first book of the year. This feels like a 5-star read for me right now, so I'm loving it. I'm gonna put this down though because it is shiny, and just talk to you guys about my thoughts. If you don't know anything about The Maid and the Crocodile, it is set in the same world as the Raybear series by Jordan Flecko, and you do, I would say, have to read Raybear, and I can't remember what the second, Redemptor, I think is the second book's name. You have to read that duology first, otherwise some of the things that are going on in this storyline aren't going to have any context for you. The author does a good job of reminding us about the overarching things that happened in those 2 books. So I would say there's also spoilers in this, but I still think that if you don't read that duology, you're really not going to understand what's going on with the large political stuff that is going on now. We are very zoomed in on this one girl. We are following the story of Shadi, and she has had a pretty hard life. She has some things about her that make life difficult for her. She has, I don't know if it's considered a club foot or if it's just her foot is deformed. There is an explanation for why it is that way that you learn about in the story, but it is a struggle of hers. So she has some mobility issues, some pain with movement and things like that. She also is not super well off and is kind of at the mercy of whoever she can get to hire her as a maid. So that is her primary occupation, is cleaning homes. She also has these white speckles or clouds, is how they're described in the book, all over her skin. And so she does just appear different to people who are walking around. And in this society, in this culture, people who, one, have deformities, two, have anything that makes them not normal or could potentially be considered ugly, makes them, I don't know if they call them curse eaters, but some people will collect people who tend to have these deformities or things that make them different from society, because they tend to collect all the bad luck and so like if you have some bad luck, you can maybe shoo your bad luck onto these people. And so she has had to deal with that her entire life. There's an entire culture surrounding this, that there are people who literally get hired to quote unquote eat curses and, shoo the curses away from people. And one day, Shadi is, how do I want to say this? A gecko comes and talks to her, and she is led into the den of the crocodile. And the crocodile is a god that is known as someone who wants human sacrifices, someone who is kind of a malevolent force within their culture, and she interacts with him. Now, I'm not going to tell you much about their interaction because I do think that was very fun going into it, kind of not knowing what's going to happen and what their personalities and personality clashes are going to be. But I will tell you that the crocodile has a curse of his own that he needs help with, and the two end up interacting and you follow their story. Now, I will say that Shadi goes on and is a maid for a specific person, and you get to learn more about her powers. And because of her ability, a lot of people who are considered curse eaters and are paid to be curse eaters are frauds, but she actually has a gift to see what does she call it? She said it's the stuff dreams are made of. Regrets, but also, good things. But what did she call it? I wish I would have highlighted. Well, this is a library book, so I can't highlight it, but she described the magic that she can see from people. Okay, I found it. So it says, I see something called spirit silt. It's like mud or pestilence, and we shed it everywhere. The stuff hopes and dreams are made of. That includes remorse, regret for things a person has not achieved or for something that they've done. And so she can see this spirit silt, this kind of dusting of things around people's houses. And so as she is actually cleaning, as she's being a housekeeper for these people, she can clean up their spirit silt, which can help people. And that ends up getting her mixed into, you can imagine like somebody just taking advantage of someone who has a gift, any gift, regardless. And so there are some conversations about that as well. There are some quotes too about her story, and I won't tell you any specifics, but there are just some things recently that have just spoken to me, and it just reminds me how much I love Jordan Ofueko. And during these chapters, that's when I was like, this feels like a 5-star book. So one of the quotes, I won't even tell you who's talking. It just says, you wanted her to be small, to know that she is always less, but I won't raise her that way. I can't. And then another one, it says, somehow my largeness had cost us our home, my voice, my no. And then lastly, I thought this was very poignant as well. It says, I don't know what the world is like where you come from, but this world, the one that made me, does not care about what people deserve. It cares about rules. At least it cares about rules for people like me. And I'm not going to give you any context for them. I think those sentiments just in general speak volumes. There is so much in this book to love. The disability rep, the fact that she is doing hard labor and oftentimes tasks that other people could probably do for themselves if they really wanted to get their hands dirty, but they don't. But it talks about how she has to do these tasks even when it's difficult for her because of the disability that she has. There was a scene where she's doing laundry and there's this really steep set of steps that she has to go on to take the laundry down to where it belongs. And she can't balance on one foot to get down these steps. And so she literally sits down on her butt and scoots down the steps with a load of laundry in her lap. And just things like that, and seeing her, I don't want to say triumph because that's not the right word, but like seeing her struggles and what she has to go through and her pushing through, and then also having conversations with people about privilege and like what people think is helpful might not be. There's a scene in here where someone tries to help her with her cleaning, and the person means well, but the character also, Shadi, actually breaks the fourth wall as she's telling her story, and she tells you, the reader, that sometimes when wealthy people or people who are above you, people who have power over you, want to help, even though you know it's going to take you twice as long, you just have to let them because it makes things easier in the long run. And while this person was trying to do the right thing, she ended up making life harder for Shadi in that instance. And it endears you to those characters, but then you also get to see like what that person wasn't considering. You get to see the other end of the spectrum. I just think the book is covering some really important topics in a really lovely way. It's not preachy, so I don't think people, I don't know, maybe they will. I wouldn't think people would come into this thinking that the book is trying to make them feel bad. I just think that the book is driving you to have some conversations with yourself and think about like what things you don't understand because you've never been in someone else's shoes. And I really appreciate that. So yeah, that, and I didn't talk about this at all. The magic, so the curse eating, the fact that she can see this spirit silt. Her magic, you also learn that she can eat like curses. So if someone is feeling guilty, she can actually get rid of the spirit silt by eating it. Sometimes it's enough to clean it up and like throw it away or push it like off a balcony. If it's like dust on the floor or whatever, she can sweep it off the balcony, but sometimes that's not enough. And so she can actually eat it and ingest it. It does have some negative ramifications on her, but she tends to be able to handle it better. And so I found that really interesting. Also, I just want to talk about this in particular because I was talking to Leandra about this and I was just describing the book. And Leandra was like, this sounds like The Familiar, which there are definitely parallels with The Familiar, although I think this book does it way better and it's interesting. Whereas I thought The Familiar was boring personally. But the fact that both of those instances, you have someone in service who is like in The Familiar, they were a scullery maid. Is that right? No, that's not. Were they an assistant to a cook? Anyway, they worked in the kitchens originally, and that person ended up gaining some power, not gaining some power, but had some power that eventually is noticed, and it puts her in the nobility's eye, and she is used to gain notoriety amongst society. And that's similar to the storyline here, where you have someone who has these powers that someone is using for their own purposes. So I really like it. I really like Shadi's character, and the backstories, how it connects with the Raybearer duology has also been really fun to see, like little specklings of some characters that I recall from that. It's just, I like being back in the world. So, okay. I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna read, and I will be back when I finish this book. I am back, and I need to update you guys on The Maid and the Crocodile. I did finish this. I finished it on January 1st. So this is my official first book of 2025, and I loved it. I love Jordan Ifueko's writing. I can't remember how much of that I talked about in the first vlog clip that I have, but with YA fantasy, I usually get a little bored. Sometimes I get frustrated with character decisions and character arcs, how things are, like how dialogue is, and none of that happens with Jordan Ifueko's writing. And maybe I'm wrong that this one is YA. I know for a fact that Raybearer is YA, but I think this one is also classified that way as well. But if I'm wrong, I apologize. But yeah, I really appreciate Jordan Ifueko's writing and the immersive nature of really what seems to be a really simplistic writing. I don't think that a lot of things are really descriptive or overly complicated when she's going into like the world and what you're seeing, what characters are doing, what the city looks like, but you still kind of feel like you're there in it. So that's really fun. I also just loved the relationship in this book. So for those of you who watch my channel frequently and you know that I'm not a big fan of romance, that's a big perk or a big plus for this book, is that I really did enjoy the growing of their relationship throughout the book, and some of the conversations that were had within that of not only consent, but also not wanting choices to be taken away from someone, not wanting someone to be pushed into a position that they don't want, regardless of whether or not the other person thinks it's what's best for them. And I also really appreciated the conversation surrounding the service industry, because I think that once again, I wish I could remember what I talked about in the first vlog. I should have taken notes on what I was going to chat with you guys about, but if I've repeated this, I guess I could just cut it out, or you'll hear it twice. But one of the things I really enjoyed about this book is the focus on how being a maid and being in the service industry is very important. And it's a profession where a lot of times people get taken advantage of, and a lot of times they get taken for granted. And so speaking of that importance and the fact that our main character really likes what she does, and, you know, maybe the circumstances surrounding some of the things that she's had to do aren't great, but the act of cleaning and making something, you know, improving something around you is something our main character really enjoys doing. And I liked that aspect throughout the story as well. The last thing I want to share with you guys is actually a quote from one of the songs that Shadi sings throughout. And actually, it's the song at the very end of the book, which is, it's not even in the storyline. It's a little excerpt where they tell you like the steps on how to clean your room. And it's the song that she sings as she's doing that. And I just think that it's really indicative of some of the things, some of the themes that are in this book. If I didn't say so before, the audiobook narrator of this story actually sings the songs that Shadi sings throughout the storyline. And so if you are someone who likes to hear like the music and the tones of someone's voice as they're singing in a storyline, I think this is perfect. But the quote that I have for you, so this is the song that she's recommending we sing if we clean our own rooms. And it says, "I will make my mind a safe place. I will hold my dreams and yours too. I am the seeds we planted. May we always own our own multitudes." And then someone after that is explaining what that last line means. It says, "I've learned that with that last line, Shadi means two things at once. first, that each person is many things and always will be, no matter how often they get pressured to fit one role or pursue one future. Second, that there is power in numbers, and a sea of ants can change the world more in a day than a giant can in a lifetime. May you grow to love your ordinary as I have grown to love mine. I love that sentiment. I think it's also just a perfect kind of wrap up of the themes in the storyline and how beautifully written they are throughout the story. So yes, 5-star read for me. I am excited. And I also wanted to update you on another new release that I didn't actually anticipate putting in this vlog, and it will be in my TBR-a-thon wrap up. But I just wanted to tell you what I was thinking of as I'm reading it as well. So this is just kind of a little bit of a sneak peek for you guys. I told you that one of the books was actually in the spinner, it just didn't get selected, was The Daughter's War. And that actually is a book I put on my TBR-a-thon TBR. And I have read 80% of it so far, and I am absolutely loving the story. The story is a prequel of The Black-Tongued Thief, and in The Black-Tongued Thief, you know that in the past there has been a war between goblins and humans. And in the prequel, you follow one of the characters from the original story in the Goblin War. And you follow Galba. Galba? Galba. I think it's Galba is how you pronounce it. I should know, I listened to the audio, but I've actually read this immersively too. I love Christopher Buehlman's writing. Speaking of like songs and things like that within a storyline, this one, The Daughter's War, doesn't have singing, but it does have some poetry and some things written in verse because they are describing specifically one of the gods. There are a couple of different stories that you follow, but one of the gods, there's a scene where we go to a church service and they're describing the god of death, the goddess of death, and her origin story is said in verse. And I just really like it. I like I love the world. It's creepy and it's definitely horror novel-esque. Like it has, I think this book, out of all of the horror that I have read, has some of the things that I find most vile because we're talking about goblins who eat humans. And so that's one of the things, like they're at war, but the things that we are at war with as a human race are things that find us as prey. And they do really horrible things to the people that they capture alive. So don't read this if you're squeamish about those type of things, because it's definitely described both in The Black-Tongued Thief and in The Daughter's War. And there are some really severe like psychological things as well that humans have to go through throughout this war, including our main character, Galba. And I really enjoyed the exploration though of her, first off, like having read The Black-Tongued Thief and seeing her as an older person and like seeing kind of her personality throughout that book, and then seeing her as a young kid, because I think at the beginning of The Daughter's War she's 18 if I remember correctly, or maybe she's 20. I think she jokes to somebody about it being her 18th birthday, but it's really her 20th birthday or something like that. But she's young in this storyline, and so you're just getting her start to her kind of military career, and you get to find, I think it's kind of fun to talk about a prequel actually, because I can actually tell you guys what's happened, because if you read Black-Tongued Thief, you're already going to know about these things. So one of the things that you get to follow is her and the Corvets, which you learn in The Black-Tongued Thief are these massive creatures, these massive birds that are the size of stags that have been made to kill goblins, and they are used in the Goblin War. And you get to follow her using and like being in a military with these Corvets. And I find that part really fascinating. Her relationship with the birds is also just lovely. And seeing her family, the relations with her brothers throughout the storyline as well is really intriguing and just adds a lot of character to her. And so like personality and, you know, backstory where you kind of understand some things that we already knew about her character because of the past story, but it just gives more context, which, yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. So this is feeling like a 5-star as well. But I wanted to throw it into this vlog, even though it's not one of the books I told you guys I was going to read, but it is a 2024 release. So I figured I'd talk about it anyway. I have a couple of updates for you guys. The first one is on the Daughters' War. So I think I talked to you guys yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. And I was at 80 or 90%. I can't remember how far along I was, but I did finish it this morning and it's a 5-star. I loved this book. I'm trying to think whether or not I enjoyed this one or The Black Tongue Thief more. And I think I would have to read The Black Tongue Thief again for me to really decide. But my gut instinct is to say that I enjoy The Black Tongue Thief more. However, I don't know. It's really close though. I really like Galva and I like being in her perspective and seeing her backstory. And some of the like religious components and what you learn about the goddess of death specifically in this book is just fascinating. You also get a lot more, okay, maybe that's probably why my head went to The Black Tongue Thief first, is I do think that this book is a little bit more gruesome. It's a little bit more, it leans heavier on the horror side than The Black Tongue Thief. The Black Tongue Thief absolutely has its moments, but because this one is set in war, and that is the main premise of the book, the Daughters' War, that it's a little darker than The Black Tongue Thief. I still think it's excellent, and I would absolutely reread it. I plan on buying it as soon as it gets out in paperback, because right now it's only out in hardback. But yeah, I think The Black Tongue Thief, just because it's a little bit cheerier and a little bit more hopeful, that I like that one a little bit more. I can't tell you much because I'm at the end of the book, but I will tell you that the ending is very realistic. I should say realistic for a fantasy world, as realistic as it can be. I think this book does war very well and does justice to the individuals in our world who have gone through battle and lost loved ones in battle and the trauma that lives on even past when the war ends. I think that this story does a really good job of that at the end, personally. So yeah, I'm excited to, I now have 2 5-stars in this vlog for my 2024 releases that I didn't get to. So that's fantastic. Now I did start, I told you guys last time that I think the next time I talked to you, I would have started The City in Glass, and that's not true. I started I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, which I'm not going to hold up because it is shiny, but I did get to page 90 out of 300, or almost 300. And so I'm almost a third of the way through the book, and I think I'm going to go back and re-listen. I don't like doing that, so I am immersive reading it, but I have, like, when I'm cooking dinner and stuff like that, I have been listening to it just on audio. And I think my expectations of this book were wrong, and it's affecting my enjoyment because I was expecting this to be cozy and for it to be kind of fun and lighthearted, and it's not. This book, just to give you like a brief synopsis, I'm pretty sure I did this at the very beginning of the vlog, so I won't go into great detail, but you're following our main character whose name is Robert, and he has inherited his father's dragon slaying position, and he really doesn't like to slay dragons. It's not a position that he wants to do. And my understanding, my first run through of the first 30%, is that they have dragons in their home. Like, he takes care of dragons. So of course he doesn't want to slay them. That would be like me becoming a cat slayer or a dog slayer. And not that, like, they're not the same, because they are, like, they do have like temperaments, or not, cats and dogs have temperaments too, but like they're wild animals type of a thing. But still, he names them, or they have names. I shouldn't say he names them, because that's like a thing for him. Him and his sister have a conversation about naming them, and he's like, you don't name them, they name themselves. But he doesn't want to be the slayer of dragons, and there's just, he has to kill dragons. It's not like, maybe it will be eventually, but at the moment in time, he's not killing dragons. He is going in and exterminating dragons that are in this castle. And I just kind of find it sad. They even talk about like the butchery of dragons within the marketplaces, and I wasn't expecting that from this story. And so I am going to go back with a new mindset in my head, because I don't dislike the writing. I just think I was expecting cozy, and my brain, because of my expectation, wasn't processing what was going on. And I just got a couple of things stuck in my head that I don't really like. One of them I don't think is going to change. There's a main character in this, or not main, but a side character, who is the reason that he's having to come in and exterminate all these dragons, is because she's trying to impress a prince so she can get married to this guy. And she's just, I'm not a fan. She seems like a brat, and everyone is like bending to her beck and call. And I'm hoping that she has some type of a story arc throughout. I can kind of see where maybe that would start happening at the point where I'm at, but right now I really dislike her character. But everything else that I'm not liking about the storyline came from my expectations. So I'm going to come back to you guys after I've reread the first 30%. I might get a little bit further. Maybe I'll try and go to 50% this time, so I can give you even, a fresher update on things that I don't already know. But those are my thoughts so far. So it's not my favorite, definitely, of the vlog, and I don't think that it will be, but I do think I will be able to enjoy it if I reset my expectations. So I'll see you in a minute. I am back with some progress. I did finish I'm Afraid We've Got Dragons, or I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. I also finished another book that was a 2024 release, which I didn't realize it at the time of reading it, but I figured I would mention it here since this is a new release from 2024 vlog, and that is the Fireborne Blade. So I'll talk about that one. I've not started The City in Glass yet, but that will be my last book for this vlog. So I will talk about I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons first. I'm not going to hold this up since it's shiny, but I know I told you guys that I was going to stop around 50% and re-update you because I was re-listening to like the first 30%, but I just decided to go through all of it because I didn't enjoy it, friends. This, I will say it got better, then it got worse. So it got better with the reread. I reset my expectations. I no longer was expecting it to be like a cozy story. And I was like vibing with the characters and how like the story was going. But with that said, the ending is not great. And there are so many things in this story that I just don't think are developed to my liking. And it was just okay. So it was going to be essentially a 3-star up until I got to the end, and it dropped down to a 2.5. So my final rating for this is a 2.5. I could have DNF'd this book. I didn't DNF because it is a short book. It's only 280 pages. And so it didn't take me long, especially while I was listening on audio. I did read part of it immersively, but I think that the potential for this story far outweighs what the story actually did, which is just kind of sad. So I like the premise. I appreciated certain aspects of the book, but I didn't like the execution overall. It was also very predictable when it comes to the quote-unquote romances that happen in the storyline and friendships that happen. You kind of know what's going to happen throughout the entire story. You know who's going to end up with who. So that was a little disappointing, especially because there's not a lot of depth in the relationships that are formed. And I absolutely hated the princess character all the way through. So I talked about this a little bit in my first clip about Cerise, I think is her name. And she's just the very beginning of the storyline, she is the one who is pushing the castle to have all of its dragons removed because she wants to impress this prince that is coming in. And she's just kind of selfish. And throughout the story, you see the author trying to make kind of a pivot in her character where she's like taking ownership for herself and kind of making a way for herself. But that selfishness perspective that you get, or perception of her that you get as a reader, never really goes away. And so the entire book, I just kind of didn't like her. Like, she was less insufferable at the end, but not really someone I ever cared about. Which, to talk about caring about a character, the only character in the book that I really felt that I connected to at all was Robert, who's the main character, the one who is the dragon exterminator. But even his motivations throughout the book are very weird. I understand, and I think that this is what I was talking about when I was talking about potential, for the fact that he is a dragon slayer, but he has characters, he has these little dragons that he keeps at home that he has like a friendship with. And that was like the cutest part of the story, seeing him interact with these little dragons that are in his home, and how like the reasoning behind him not wanting to kill dragons, because he appreciates them for what they are. They're intelligent beings. Yes, do they get into trouble? Do they cause havoc in certain locations? Absolutely. But he was respectful of their nature, essentially, in his house. And I appreciated his storyline in that. But then throughout the rest of the book, he has this thing that he wants to be a prince's valet. That's like he talks about it all the time, about like that's what he inevitably wants to be. He doesn't want anything to do with dragon slaying. He doesn't want like a quote unquote bigger life. He just wants to be a prince's valet. But it's never explained really why he feels this way. And I understand someone wanting to be small, like not wanting to be something great and to have like a lot of pressures. But I don't think it was really dug into that well. And the ending, I'm not going to talk about it, but I just didn't like it. It was very rushed. There's literally like scenes where something really devastating happens and then you wake up in a completely different place with some but little explanation of how you got there. And there's no like going back and figuring out like the events that transpired from here to here. Like, yeah, it's a short book that needed to be longer if it was going to impress me in any way. So 2.5 for me. Now let's talk about the book that I didn't realize I was going to be reading throughout the month of January, but I am really glad that I did, and that is the Fireborne Blade. If you haven't heard of this little short novella, it is a series. Right now there's only 2. I don't know if there's going to be more than that, but they are both novellas. I think the audiobook for this was 5 hours long, and this little book impressed me to no end. I ended up rating this a 4.5 star. It is very hard for a short book for me to get a 5 star, and I did contemplate giving this one. It was going to be between a 4.5 and a 5 star, and it might end up moving up if it like remains in my memory and something that I think about constantly, because I just really liked this. You are following a knight who she has been disgraced, and I'm not going to give you many details because of the fact that it is so short, but she's on a quest to receive the Fireborne Blade that has been taken by a dragon and is in the possession of a dragon. And so she has to go on this quest to get this Fireborne Blade in order to get her honor back. And throughout the story, you learn about dragons in this world and dragon slayers and the like impacts of dragons on the people around them is kind of all I'm gonna say. There's a lot of like intricacies surrounding the death of people who have died in the presence of dragons and what the magic surrounding dragons has done to those individuals that is just really entertaining and creepy, and something that I want more of. Like I want to have more information. And the reveals at the end were just absolutely fantastic. I was not expecting what happened. It was a blast all the way through, and I can't recommend this little novella enough. I have already put the second book on hold, so I'm hoping to get the second book, and I might read it in February because I had such a fun time and I want to know what else happens. I plan on buying this as soon as I can. It's absolutely fantastic. So my next update for you guys will be The City in Glass, The City in Glass, I think is what it's called, by Nevo. I don't know if I'm going to update you like halfway through or if I'm just going to read it all because it is very, very short, but I guess you'll find out in just a few minutes. Here for my final update of my first monthly vlog of the year, and it's going to end a little bit differently than I expected. So at the very beginning of this vlog, I had chosen The City in Glass by Nevo. And this was chosen, if I remember correctly, because the beginning intrigued me and the rating was higher than all the other ones that also intrigued me. This ended up being a DNF, which I will say that this is probably a soft DNF. It's very short and I could get back to it, but I just am not feeling it right now, and I feel like if I force it, I'm going to end up giving it a lower rating than it deserves. So I'm going to put this on pause for maybe later in the year when I'm feeling it a little bit more. You are following a demon's perspective. That's the main character is a demon, and the first couple of chapters are just them kind of traveling around their city and talking about how different things work. The writing, it kind of pulled me out a little bit of the story because the way that sentences are structured and some of it is a little confusing. And I think it might just be because of the fact that we're in a demon's head. But then also, like, when the demon, so I think the last chapter I read was I think they're supposed to be angels. I'm not exactly sure because we don't know a lot of information about them yet, but they come to the city and they destroy it. And the demon like gets destroyed but can't die and is like at the bottom of an ocean or lake or something. And some weird things happen in that scene. And I feel like it's a little bit too out there for me, for me to fully wrap my head around it right now. And so I think I'm going to give up for a minute. It's only 200 and something pages. Let's see. It's 215 pages and I was on like page 30. So I didn't get very far into it. And like I said, I'm not saying it's completely down and out, but I didn't want to end the vlog on a DNF. So I did continue with Full Speed to a Crash Landing. And I thought this was really fun. I'm gonna actually continue on with this series. This is another really short novella. Let's see. This one is less than 200 pages. It's like 180 pages. So I had a lot of fun with this. It is about a pilot who, the very beginning, is wrecked and is putting out a distress signal to all the ships around her, and one of them is close enough to come and get her but waits a significant amount of time to come and get her, and she starts worrying. And you know that she's on this ship for reasons that she's not disclosing, but you're not sure as the reader who that is. You're kind of kept in the dark, just like the people that she's interacting with. But you know that there's something up because she continues to tell you that, like, well, I told them the truth. It's not my fault if they don't see it, or something like that. And you're like, what does that mean? And so you are kind of trying to figure out what's going on with her. Why is she on this ship? They are in the middle of trying to salvage some of this wrecked ship that has happened around where she had had her ship breached. And so you don't quite know, like, what items are they collecting? Why are they collecting them? They seem very important. And I think that's all I'm going to tell you because it's, like I said, it's very, very short. But I just had a lot of fun. I'm going to rate this a 4.25. And I'm excited to continue this little short novella series. I do enjoy a sci-fi kind of mystery. I don't know that I would call this like a genre blend as far as sci-fi mystery goes, because it doesn't really feel like you're solving a mystery throughout the whole thing. You're just kind of in the background, you know that there's something not quite right with what's going on. But I do like the intrigue that was throughout this. I liked her thinking about all these things, and the reveals at the end of what happened were very fun as well. So it's a fun little read if you guys are looking for like a little bit of a pick-me-up, something that isn't super complex but is still really engaging. I think this is a good book. So this is lovely to end on. I had a couple of successes in this. So I have Full Speed to a Crash Landing, but I also read the Maid and the Crocodile, which I rated 5 stars. Absolutely phenomenal. I also read the Fireborne Blade, which I didn't anticipate reading for this. That was a 4.5 star. That book was absolutely phenomenal. It's another novella series that I will get to continue in February, hopefully. And then I did have I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, which was a 2.5. I didn't enjoy that one quite as much, but I do see that there is an audience for that book without a doubt. But I like this idea. It was fun to be able to pick up different books from 2024 that I didn't get to that I was still interested in, so I just don't forget about them. So let me know if you guys have any 2024 releases that you still haven't gotten to and that you're really interested in. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments. If you aren't feeling chatty, just leave me either a moon or a star for Full Speed to a Crash Landing, or spaceship, something spacey, in the comments so that I know you guys are here with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!